I had a conversation with a friend not long ago, and I don't remember what was the genesis, what was the thrust of it all, but they were talking about, and it was going back to what was it? They were sort of, in my mind, the old Paul Ehrlich population bomb. Oh, we've got to, I think it had to do, God, who was it talking about? I don't think it was the Pope. It may have, no, because that would be birth control. Was it Bernie Sanders was saying at some point? Yeah, because it was one of his justifications for unfettered abortion.
Right.
And he had been talking about too many people. There's too many people on the planet. They brought that up with me, and I said, well, no. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, there's more people on the planet now than ever before, right? And they said, yes. And I said, but at the same time, more people are being fed. We have less abject poverty. It's about 10%, where a quarter century ago it was like 30 or 35.
No. It was close to 50% just 50 years ago.
And despite the increasing population, despite the increasing demand on resources, more people are doing better, not only across the globe than ever before.
That's absolutely true.
How is that?
Because, really interesting economic thing on this. People, as you have going out doing work, people as they add labor, they're actually contributing something to society. And if you are allowed to use electricity and aids like that in your labor, you're able to be more and more efficient, right?
You mean as a result of inexpensive and available energy?
There you go. So you're able to be more efficient with your labor, which means you create more surpluses than were there before. So if we have more people doing more labor, we're able to create more food. And if we're doing it with these modern farming technologies where we allow us to go after and take out the insects that would otherwise devastate a crop, if we allow them to irrigate with water rather than saying you can't use water to irrigate, then we're more efficient along those lines, and we're even able to improve that efficiency over time.
The Greta Thunbergs of the world, the radical Greens, it's their vision of not only America, but their vision of the world is that everybody should be cooking their food over sheep dung,
which I was just talking about this on air last night. There are, when you talk about abject poverty, there really are people who live in huts where they they cook their food with sheep dung, or in some cases, human feces. That creates a soot that they breathe into their lungs all day long, every day, and it's deadly. That's what living without electricity is like. And the more people you can get electricity to, the better off their lives are, the better off the world is. And that's why we've seen abject poverty. People living on $1.90 per day or less is now just 10% of the population. Whereas when you and I were born, it was 50-60% of the population living in abject poverty. And I'm not just talking about the United States, I'm talking about globally. So we now have 7.7 billion people on the planet, and fewer of them as a percentage, and actually in real numbers, are living an awful existence. More of us are living better lives, longer lives, healthier lives, and at the same time, here's what Greta Thunberg really misses, and I don't blame her. Using an autistic child as your global spokesperson may not be fair.
It's an insipid thing to do.
It's not fair to her. But the planet is actually greener than it was when you and I were born. There's more green space when you look at the Earth from space. It's more green than it used to be. All of this is true. All of these things are facts, and yet they're things that get overlooked. I keep, we talk about how leftist Hollywood is, right? Hollywood's this left-wing thing, and they keep advocating for left-wing ideas. But who was the biggest villain in movies in the last 5 years? Thanos. What did Thanos want to do? He wanted to wipe out half the population because he believed that overpopulation in the galaxy was a problem. That's Paul Ehrlich. He wanted to wipe out half the population, and that is where actually this global...
Even more frighteningly, it's Bernie Sanders.
It's where the global warming movement began, was with the population bomb idea. Thanos, the biggest villain in all of Hollywood film, is actually advocating for some of the same things that began the greed movement here in the real world.